For me, Pride Month actually isn't about sexuality or gender, although I recognize that those are important elements. But for me, on a very personal level, it's about the human desire for a sense of belonging. I would say I'm queer. I've always known that. And I'm just not very public about it. I haven't wanted to get on a big, podium and talk about it. It doesn't feel political in my personal life. Although I really respect and appreciate and want to support the political movement that is associated with Pride Month. Last year, I watched this TV show on Netflix that was the kind of remake of an old show about San Francisco in the 80s. Some of the same characters and a bunch of new ones in a new show with Laura Linney and a bunch of folks. And everyone in the show is contextualized on a spectrum. There are a couple of straight up straight characters, but they are living in this community where they're the exception. And as I watched the show, I felt my nervous system relax. I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And it was so bizarre because I hadn't realized how invisible this aspect of myself was until watching this random soap opera on Netflix. But it was there's the queer kids in 17 different ways. There's not one queer. There's the trans kids who are changing gender, and there's the character who's just gone through a transition and now is attracted to different genders. It's fucking complicated and constantly evolving. And there was just underneath it all this sense of we're welcome here. That felt I'm remembering it now and I'm just oh my God, wow, I have not felt that way in most spaces. And in the year since watching that show, I've been aware that it feels really complicated to create those spaces, to participate in creating those spaces, in part because I look pretty straight on the outside. I'm married to a man, we're monogamous. There was actually an interesting period in our relationship when we were living with a bunch of people, and I came out to the table and no one believed me. They were like, what does that even mean? That's not a real thing. And these were fucking liberal, lefty hippies, crazy spiritual folks, Reiki masters, very edgy, intelligent, empowered, loving, welcoming people. But they didn't get me and my sexuality. Nor did my incredibly queer community in college, where I just never felt queer enough. It was really that I just wasn't cool enough. But it manifested to me as I don't read as queer enough. There's something not edgy enough. I'm not cool enough. I'm not political enough. I'm not something enough to be fully accepted here in this queer space. I think the world has changed a lot. I think that that was 20 years ago. I think that now there's more room for the fluidity, the diversity of our sexual expression. One of the things that's been interesting for me in watching the race conversations has been this, to me, kind of side conversation. It does not feel mainstream to me about specifically Black trans lives. And once again, I just the fact that conversation is happening. It's terrible that Black trans lives are being threatened in the way that they are. But there's something about the conversation and the people who are speaking up about it that make me feel like this is a world that I belong in. Because we're willing to talk about all people, all their expressions, knowing that they're normal, knowing that they're welcome, knowing that that's the default setting. The default setting is that those who have been not accepted because they don't fit some kind of mold, like, get to be here. And so I think that there's, like, for me, Pride Month actually isn't about sexuality or gender, although I recognize that those are important elements. But for me, on a very personal level, it's about the human desire for a sense of belonging, and to live in a space on a national level, on a state level, on a city level, on a community level, on a neighborhood level, on a building level, in a family, where we know that we all belong as we are, unapologetically. Just like the more we turn up the volume on who we are, the more we belong. That's what I'm interested in. I'm super grateful for the activists and communities that have made Pride, and really honored to benefit. I think that's the truth, is that I just am benefiting from their activism. And I'm super grateful, and really grateful for the next 20 years. Like, may it be so that 20 years from now, I am way more integrated, I want to say, about my queerness, and way more facile and masterful at creating spaces where the full range of myself and all selves feels welcome. That's my prayer for me.